through WebEx conference call-in. The number is 855-925-2801, meeting code 3812. And I will repeat that. 855-925-2801, meeting code 3812 for WebEx conference call-in. For those who wish to provide commentary by email, the email address is, and this is all lowercase, WPCA comments, all one word, at South Windsor, one word, ct.gov. And I will repeat that. WPCA comments, one word, all lowercase, at South Windsor, one word, lowercase, ct.gov. Those preliminaries being dispensed with, Tony, will you call the roll?
Okay. I have everyone in attendance. Carol came in at 7:01, and we were missing Mr. Wagner, Mr. Giacobaccio, and Mr. Narayan.
Okay. That's an interesting way to call the roll, but we'll accept it. We have a quorum present.
Oh,
Pardon me?
I think, Carol, you're muted.
I had trouble logging in even though I was muted. I was here for a while.
Yep.
Okay.
We were able to see you.
Yes.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're good. First order of business, acceptance of the minutes of the previous meeting, March 2nd, 2021. They were distributed with the agenda and also by email to the membership. And are there any questions, comments, additions, deletions to the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
Second. Is there a second to that? Second by Carol, motion by Toby. All those in favor signify by raising your hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes of the March 2nd meeting are approved. We move on to new business, there being no items on the agenda. We continue on to communications and reports, the superintendent's reports. Mr. Manfredi.
Thank you. So this month we did our commercial industrial billing. We billed a total of 359 accounts for a total of $1,419,018.61. This was $27,000 less than last year, and this is primarily due to an 8% drop in flow. I'm expecting for these numbers to bounce back next year as we see the end of the COVID pandemic. Moving on to the MIU, the miscellaneous industrial user notification and permitting. I've made some phone calls around to other municipalities just to see how they're going to handle this. And what I've found is that it seems like every town and city is handling this a little bit differently. Some are handling this just as a notification. They get the information from the company just saying we're discharging X amount, and they're just kind of putting that into a file. Others are handling this more as a true permitting process where there's a permit filed for a fee, and then there's an annual fee that goes along with that. I'd personally like to maybe take up to a year just to get a handle on this, to see how much we have in town, how many businesses we have in town, how this is going to affect our department. I'd like to start working on milestones that we hit so I can report back to WPCA, and just kind of continue to build the framework. But our biggest challenge administratively is whittling the list down of the businesses, how they affect us and how they're going to affect us with personnel. With that said, I'd like to propose forming a subcommittee with the WPCA, if you deem that appropriate. I know we have certain talent within the group that could be beneficial and assist in this. Vicky's already volunteered and we've had a conversation, and I'd certainly like to continue those conversations with her, just to help us through the process and kind of get her side on the private sector. So I'd like to throw that recommendation out there and, be seen
Okay,
fit.
well, I think what we want to do is, we probably need a motion to establish a subcommittee. And what are you thinking, 1 or 2 members?
Probably a two member, I think, would be the most efficient way.
Okay.
And I know
And-
Carol
and
has some
within that-
background in.
Within that context, they need some sort of charter to what they're examining. So my guess is that they would be looking at the framework for the basis for permitting, whether we should charge a fee, give them some parameters to work with.
Mhm. Yes, that's
So-
what I'd like to look at.
Okay, so why don't we offer to the group, is anyone care to make a motion to form such a subcommittee? Toby, are you muted?
Yeah, well, I'd like to ask a question, if I may, can you restate the purpose of this subcommittee?
As I understand it, we want to examine the framework for what this, what is it called, intermediate?
Industrial uses permit, MIU.
Yeah, a permitting process that the state has graciously delegated to the local authorities without much in the way of direction, from what I understand. So before we enter into some process of dealing with our local businesses, I think we want to find out what kind of animal we're looking at here and help us chart a course forward.
So the animal is the state regulations or the businesses?
It's regulation of local businesses being essentially mandated by the state upon the local authorities.
So tell
So-
me, if I can.
Vicki, go ahead.
If I can elaborate a little bit, so in the state of Connecticut, industrial permitting for wastewater is permitted to the state of Connecticut. As of last year, they established the miscellaneous, actually MIU and the SIU permitting, where if you're a large industrial user, you have to continue to permit through the state. If you're a small industrial user, you need to permit to the town. Unless you have an acid bath in the facility that is less than 4.5 pH, which is stupid, but then you are a large user. Don't ask me why, but so what they have done is they have processed the burden of permitting small sources to the towns without any financial support or very much direction in that aspect. So the state is becoming less burdened with the smaller users, and they're just focusing on the larger users or the SIUs. So that's what's happening at this point.
Okay, so as a follow-up question, so this subcommittee would be not a decision-making body, but a reporting body. They would research and do whatever, then come back to us and give us their findings?
That would be my goal, so that we know what it is we're dealing with before we take any actions or are put in the position of having to take any actions. Basically, to do some homework.
I see no objection to that.
Yeah, initially my goal was, with our upcoming public hearing, was to have our fees established and put them on our rate sheet. But as I've been digging a little deeper into this, there's a lot more to it than just kind of throwing out some fees and making them stick.
I don't want to speak for the group, but I don't think we want to establish a fee just because we can. Stephen, you wanted to get into the conversation?
Question, just based off of what Vicki just said, and thank you so much for the clarification. But if we do set up this subcommittee, will we also be, even though I just heard what Tony just said, so this might be counterintuitive, but would we also be setting up costs or recommendations for the state as well? Like, we're not just focused on small businesses. We're going to be focused on every business and saying, if you're over X, then this is what we're
No,
charging.
As I understand it, our first mission is to find out, well, the legal authority for doing this, but beyond that, how many businesses in town would be affected?
Okay.
And then what exactly does this permit process entail? Does it also include a requirement to go out and inspect? What are we getting into here? And before we as the authority take any action, I think we want to find out what the questions are and get some answers to those questions.
and
Copy
just
that.
to clarify, Stephen, at the state level, the towns
Yep.
don't have, the municipalities have no say with the states, for the larger users. That's a whole separate ballgame. The MIUs are for the towns.
Okay.
And also facilities who are a user right now with a permit, such as my facilities, we can stay with the permit we currently have or become a minor source. And the thing is that the constituents of for parameters for your analytical work are significantly different, where they're higher, so you can make those targets easier. But the thing is, one thing that has to be kind of clarified too is that under permitting through the state of Connecticut, there's fees associated with that to the sum of $5,000 depending upon your discharge level. So my sites, we pay $5,000 a discharge, but we have a lot of wastewater. Those are annual. But that's based on processing. It's based on the state. The inspectors come out annually, that kind of thing. So now all that has been burdened onto the towns, and Tony's at a position without any funding,
Right.
without support, to figure out what these regulations mean, and what also are the requirements for the town to keep an eye on these permits. Because if you have a MIU and you're like, hey, the town, here you go, town, and you start not meeting your permit guidelines, it's up to the town to swing around back and say, hey, you're violating. So they actually manage this permit within the organization without any environmental people. So it's going to be challenging.
Will that also make us possibly liable?
Well, it'll be liability on the wastewater treatment plant. I don't think the state right now, it's not my understanding that the state is going to be policing the MIUs. That's up to the town. It's completely divorced. They're divorced from MIUs. When it comes to MIUs, the state has divorced themselves from that.
That's why they take the acronym.
Well, we appear to have some fertile ground here to do some research. So again, can I ask for a motion to establish a subcommittee?
I'd like to make a motion that we establish a subcommittee to research someone help me with the verbiage here, the MODs,
I think it's that minor.
MIU.
Yeah.
MIUs, and to report back to the Wpca the findings.
Yeah, that sounds good. Is there a second? Okay, Eric has a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, is there a time frame? How fast does this need to happen?
When did you get have you received any permits yet? They're due at the end of April, right? Is it? Did they push it?
Yeah, I believe it was April 29th is the deadline. But as I'm looking at this, we obviously don't have meetings in the summer. I really like to take our time and research this and have a pretty robust knowledge of what we're dealing with, and have a framework and an SOP if we can.
Do we have a choice? The states, we have no choice, do we?
So the state has just left it up to us to do what we want with it. My fear is that in 10 years, or if we get dumped on and we go to the state looking for assistance, they're going to say, well, you should have known that they were there. So I'd rather be proactive on something like this. At
Agreed.
least get it going, so.
I do want to just tell you right now that I work very closely with the state with the SIU component, and the permit writers themselves don't even have the answers. So it's kind of a screwed, it's a hot mess.
My overall concern with this is this could be anything from a paper process of issuing a permit to a process that would put us in a position where we have to add staff to go out and monitor. And I think we need to get those answers pretty well clarified before we take any formal actions on this. So that's the overall charge of the subcommittee. And we'll expect that certainly by September, we start getting some thoughts back and perhaps narrow the charge of the committee. But if there's no further discussion, I'd look for a vote.
Mr. Ruby, may I ask a question?
That's our council liaison chiming in, who is not on camera.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
I'm just asking the question with permitting. Is the permitting presently being done on our town online, Mr. Manfrey?
No, we don't have any new program.
I'm sorry?
This is a new program.
Right. So with permitting, is that something that we might be able to do online with our permitting programming that we have?
I mean, we'll be exploring all of that down the road, but right now we're just looking for whether or not we're going to form this subcommittee.
Okay.
So if
those permits, the MIUs are getting submitted to the state directly and then funneled to you, is that how it's working?
No, I've had direct contacts coming to me, and it's only been a handful. I think maybe 3, 4, or 5, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Thank you.
Call for the question.
Okay, question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions? Okay, do I have 2 quick volunteers here? Vicki and Carol, thank you. And I will participate as needed. Okay, we're on to our next item of business within the superintendent's report.
Sorry, I'm just writing down the motion. All right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, where was I? We're in the superintendent's report so we got through the MIU, the treatment plant update. Process numbers have been improving with the rise of the seasonal temperatures. Our maintenance staff has been rebuilding several pumps. They've completed pump realignments and been doing bearing service to our clarifiers. And we're beginning preparations for the disinfection season. We've been cleaning our UV chamber and then begin servicing the UV unit to prepare that for the season. On the collection side, we performed on-site, our staff performed on-site inspection of the Chapel Road sewer lining. And that's been a cost savings to the town. Instead of having our engineer on site full-time to oversee that, we've been utilizing our staff. They've been doing an excellent job with that. And we've also inspected sewer right-of-ways in preparation for the summer maintenance activities. I'm sure some of you may recall we spent the last 4 years, or we spent 4 years clearing all of the right-of-ways to make them accessible, and now we're in our maintenance phases. We've had a few windstorms over the past several months, so we went through just to note any trees and any new wood piles or brush piles that may be interfering with our access. As far as the capital improvement projects, our pump station upgrade, we began the environmental hazard assessment and soil borings. The soil borings were completed last week. And then also on Chapel Road, we have 1 section remaining before the project is complete. And that section is actually on Clark Street. So once that's done, that project will be completed and it's scheduled for the end of April. The collector of revenue report, I got numbers yesterday. For the 2020 commercial billing, she's collected over 99%. We started receiving payment for the 2021 commercial billing, which just went out. For what it's worth, after 2 business days, we were approaching the 7% mark for the collection. And the 2021 residential collection rate is just over 97% at this point. As far as the delinquencies, she provided a report to me as well. The principal balance is a little over $237,000. The total due with interest is $345,646. Tax serve, if you recall, in January, the collective revenue took over the collecting of delinquent accounts. So I just went back looking at her first 3 months versus tax service last 3 months, and I averaged that out. Tax service was averaging a collection of $1,600 per month for the last 3 months, and since the collective revenue took over, she's been averaging $13,000, over $13,000. So that's really positive news. And lastly, she's issued 117 warrants for residential sewers to the state marshal, and that amount, including interest, totals just about $213,000. And that concludes the superintendent report.
Okay, any questions for Tony on any facets of the report? There being none, we move on to public participation. Are there any email comments or telephone contacts? Okay, thank you. We're on to item F, bills, change orders, disbursements. There appear to be none. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Unfinished business, we are at the budget.
Okay. In an effort to get to the 415 user fee, and also last meeting, Steve Wagner requested looking into electric vehicles. So what I did, I removed the truck 80 replacement, which I was looking at doing a lease on. I removed that from the budget, which reduced it by $6,000. This will give me an opportunity to look into electric vehicles, see what's available, and then to look into any infrastructure that we may need, reliability, maintenance issues. So I removed truck 80 replacement for this year. You'll see it in next year's budget, and we'll be exploring the electric vehicle possibility. I also reduced the uncollectible rate to 4.5%. It's still conservative, but it will balance the budget, and it gets us to a user fee of $415. Initially, I had a 8% uncollectible rate, but as we've seen with the numbers, they've been encouraging, so I did increase that to, or decrease it to 4.5%. So that gets us to a 415 user rate. If that's approved, we can bring that to the public hearing in May, which we have scheduled for May 4th. And actually, we could stop there with the budget, and I can take any questions, then we can move on to sewer rate and the qualified income program.
Okay. Regarding the budget, the uncollectible rate that you're using, is that more reflective of our actual experience over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think it's typically in past years, it's been budgeted at a 1.4% uncollectible rate. As I said, it'll be conservative.
Okay. But it's based on reality.
Yeah.
You didn't just come up with a number to make up the difference in the budget.
Correct. Yeah, I'm basing it off the numbers that I'm seeing with the collection rates and what the potential impact of the pandemic will be for the remainder of the year.
Okay, any other questions regarding actual elements of the budget? Toby?
Yeah, Tony, earlier in the meeting, you had mentioned you didn't know about some numbers, due to businesses, not using as much flow, and that's gonna change things. So you're kind of in a wait and see mode. What if, just to ask the question, not to be negative, but what if, a year from now, we're still dealing with some element of COVID-19? What does that do to your budget and your projections?
Well, that's where the uncollectible rate kind of gives us a little bit of cushion. So if the numbers maintain where they're at, that'll give us a little bit of wiggle room. The flip side is if the economy comes back, business is booming, flows are up, and we're collecting money, we can put that money into the reserves. And I also like to mention, this will be the third year in a row that we'll be at 415 for a user rate if it does get approved. When you extrapolate that over the years and you look at future projects for next year, I think we're gonna have to tap in to the reserves a little bit to help stabilize the user rate. Because what I'm looking at is, I don't think anybody's gonna be happy with what the future user rates look like at this point. So if we can build the reserves and then use some of that money to help stabilize the rates for the coming years, I think behoove the authority and the residents.
That's a good plan. Thank you very much.
Okay, within the context of the current year, we are not tapping into the operational reserve, correct?
That's correct.
And that's fully funded.
That's not fully funded.
Okay, help me out.
Or, I'm sorry. The operational reserve is fully funded. The replacement reserve is approximately 60% funded.
Okay. Replacement reserve essentially being capital.
I saw your face drop.
Well, I don't like to be surprised. Okay, so we need a motion to set up the public hearing. If there are no further questions, let me not cut anybody off here. There being none? Okay. We need a motion to present the budget at the public hearing on, what, May 4th? And are we doing that
So
at 7
moved.
o'clock? Well, hang on. Are we doing that at 7 o'clock?
Yeah, we're gonna try to, yeah. I believe that's what the original motion was it 2 months ago now? We established the date and time.
Okay,
Now we're establishing what we're gonna bring to the public hearing.
okay. So we need that motion put on the record?
Yeah, do you want to discuss the discount program or anything on the fee sheet that was in the packet as well? And then we can just do it on one motion, or? Because I believe,
Well, the
can do
discount
separate
program
motions.
is continuing in force. We're not moving people out of that program, are we?
no, same program, we just updated the
And the
numbers.
fee schedule is based off the 415 base rate,
Correct.
which is the same as last year. And if I read you correctly, the prior year also.
Correct.
So we're ready to move forward, are we not?
Correct. I'll take any questions if there are any, but yep.
Okay, so what do you need for a motion, Tony?
To bring the 415 user rate to public hearing and the presented, I guess the presented sewer user rates, surcharge rates, and assessment schedule.
Okay.
So moved?
Moved by Toby. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Any further discussion on that? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
So when is that announcement gonna be in the paper? Don't we have to announce it beforehand for public hearing?
Yeah, we'll probably do it next week.
Be subject to legal
Usually gonna
process.
jump on it.
Okay,
but,
Okay?
yep,
Okay, so the public hearing will be May 4th, prior to our regular meeting.
correct.
Okay. Is there any other business to bring forward? Any discussion?
Mr. Ruby, if I may mention one thing?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Mr. Manfree, I would just like to speak on behalf of the town and the council and how much we appreciate you and your staff that are working down there doing during the COVID and your exposures that your folks have. And we truly appreciate you, and you guys are truly frontline workers. I want to thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I will pass your words on. And yeah, they do a tremendous job and they make my life a heck of a lot easier. So I appreciate them as much as you do. So thank you though. Appreciate the kind words.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Ruby.
Are we done? Toby, I know you're ready.
I'd like to make a motion to close.
Second, please. Second by Eric. All
I
those
just,
in favor?
before we close, I just wanted to know, Eric, did the cat kick you out, or is that why you're, okay. I didn't know if I was the only one that noticed that you're in the garage. I didn't know if that was a cat situation. I'm sorry. I couldn't.
They weren't feeling it. They told me to
Okay.
take it in the garage. They don't want to be on camera.
I said, man, that cat owns the house. Put him in the garage.
Well, it's a business. It's a business. That's a business cat. That's a sales.
Yes.
tool.
I'm not, yay.
You need
He has
accessories for your truck.
That's a budget.
Okay.
You didn't pay the
So-
rent. I'm sorry, Tom.
Completed discussion on the non-debatable motion to adjourn. Uh, All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Meeting is
Aye.
closed. Thank you all again for your assistance in getting through this technical way.